This is BZ Rieger, and Jeanie is with me. And this is another evening of Around the Quantum Campfire. It is October 8th. Hey, Jeanie.
Hello.
And we're already laughing because actually we had a number of people who were going to join the campfire. And with one thing and the another, with a technical glitch, and then getting back late from work, and phones running out of juice, and this, that, and the other thing. It's Jeanie and me. So one of the things that we were talking about as I was just contacting the others was that that the universe, our universe, has different plans sometimes, and sometimes the flow and kind of what we had laid out, what we thought would be good, changes. And like tonight. And I was checking because I get very excited when that happens, because I think, okay, well, there's something even more delicious than I had, if I was planning at all, had planned out a bit. And so say what you said again, Jeanie, about your thoughts on that.
Well, I was just mentioning the synchronicities that I've been experiencing as far as making a plan and then something even more delightful showing up, staying in the flow and just watching circumstances, just little things show up that I can personally see, actually, that are making the big picture more clear and more fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, little things will show up, and then I'll laugh and see how it connects to this, to that, and it's like allowing the autopilot of my inner being, just trusting it and going with it. It just makes life show up in perfect timing and show up more fun. And
you said that was a change for you.
That was what?
That was a change. Going about it that way was a change from the way you used to do it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a process, and sometimes I'm able to be in that flow or in that mode, in that trusting, in allowing the universe to have its way. Mm-hmm. When I can stay out of my ego mind and worry and control and all that type of stuff, and going with the plan, when I can allow my inner being, allow myself to trust my inner being and quiet my mind so that I can hear those whispers of the spirits and nudges or whatever, to guide me to that next thing, to allow that fun thing to show up. And the more that I am able to be present and to stay out of, like I said, when I get into my mind, it's like that's where I miss the mark, where I, when I try and control and fear and fix things, that's my sin. That's where I miss the mark. That's where that's where I sit and say, well, how come all the good stuff happens to so-and-so? How come the good stuff ever happens to me, in my little victim self-pity mode, Right. So when I can breathe and allow and feel happy and appreciate, and I laugh out loud at some of the delightful things that come into my experience. It's just, it's very exciting. It's very joyful. It's very, expansive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you can't see it because you're on the phone, but the next part of this story that you and I are playing with on, when the flow just goes one way, you go with it. So Sheila's now joined us. She's here. Hey, Sheila.
Hello.
Hey. Hi, Jeanie.
And
Hi.
so part of the fun was, as I was getting in touch with some of the other people who were going to come to this, and and the different things happened. They couldn't come. So I thought, well, I know two people who would like to come that may come. So I texted them, and one of them was Lisa, and she said, I can't come. I have to drive up early in the morning. But I texted both Sheila and Lisa at the same time in the same text one. And Lisa said, but you've got to tell Sheila by email because she's not getting this text. So I thought that was kind of a, this again, something in the flow there, and it's all good. So hey, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, she knocked on the door just a minute ago and said, "Are you getting these texts?" And I'm like, "No." So yeah, and we're in the same house, so that's kind of odd.
Right.
But yeah, so wow.
Well, sorry for the spur of the moment notice.
Well, no, hey, I love it. You know me, I'm in.
Well, and one of the things that Jeanie and I have been talking about off camera as we were waiting for the others to join us was about how she was realizing that there's nothing to fix. So again, this is one of those, there's absolutely nothing wrong here. This is perfect. And for reasons that, at least at this moment or 5 moments ago, we didn't know why this grouping was set out, but it will unfold and there will be delicious play in that. And so maybe it's a good kind of a conceptual illustration for people that if we have a focus on one thing and a plan on one thing, let it be more, my plan is always an energetic plan. So, it's nice to have a thought of different people I'll connect with, but my idea is to flow and have expansion and have fun. So if this is the way that it's being scripted by me and Sheila and Jeanie, there to do it, that works for me.
Well, I love the opportunity to get a chance to chat with Jeanie as from the last Quantum Campfire that I watched, your first one. Jeanie, I have to say you said something in there that I have now felt quite a bit recently, and that is you were speaking in regards to you felt as though a program had been removed from your brain.
Oh, yeah.
You said, yeah. Well, I don't know if you caught our first video after your video with BC, but of course I woke up that morning and saw it, and the very first thing within me was jealousy. Oh my God, BC's having a recording and I'm not there.
Oh.
Yeah, but what was so wild was the moment that came up, it was more like, and I noticed it right off. It was something that I was almost surprised at, and then it's like it integrated really quickly. And I've noticed since then, and like I said, after hearing what you had to say about that, I've noticed since then that this has happened again, and it feels like an echo, and it made me think about what you said about how you felt as though the program had been removed. And so therefore what I was experiencing was not anywhere near as strong as it has been in the past, or and it was easier to notice, and it was it felt like it was, like I said, like an afterthought, like an echo or a memory almost. And so it was very easy to integrate and look at, first of all, and then integrate. And so I really felt like what you said there that I felt that, and I think that is that feels right. That I don't know, that the energetics of all of that are have changed in some way.
Yeah, and somewhere right around the time frame that you're talking about, we did the three of us did a conversation around, you know, the woe is me is absolutely no longer energetic, is absolutely no longer supported. And in that, I was giving a description of how it's not, you don't even have to shift out of something because it isn't quite even there to remember. And that's, you're describing a lot of that.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, I mean, I realize some of it is, you know, habit, leftover habit or whatever, but even that felt like there was twice since then that something would come up. And before I even had the chance to voice it, or which would have been habit in the past, something within me stopped it in some way. Like, I had a thought, oh, why would you want to do that? You know, why would you even want to do that? That kind of thing. It's like, I don't know, just easier, more fluid. It's not something, it's like you, when I came in, you all were speaking on, it's not something that has to be fixed anymore. So it's not something I'm, oh, darn, I forgot it. I shouldn't have done that, or, you know, something like that. It's not like that anymore. It's like, it's totally different feel.
It just occurred to me too that as Jeanie and I were, you know, we were talking and I had emailed you, but you didn't get the text that I sent you about it. So it almost like that was one last cap on that last piece you had around the first conversation of around the Quantum Campfire. You know what I mean? Blocking you, so in an end cap to block and finish completely, wrap that up. That just came. So do with it what you like, but that's a possibility. Because it's very interesting that Lisa got it right away and you didn't, and except for one other thing, I'd have to go back and look one other time when that happened, but it was something interesting to around whatever the conversation that we were having as well. Okay, so Jeanie, which of the ones, so this is something for you to think about too, Sheila, as we go through playing here. Everybody comes up with a question that they want to play with, or a concept, and then, you know, be bad with. So Jeanie, you had 2, and I chuckled because I said half of each of one of them would, you know, we could play for centuries on. But so which one which one did you want to start with?
Oh my goodness. I was kind of pondering that, and I would say let's.
You want me to pick one, or are you going to pick it?
Perspectives is the one that came first to me.
Okay.
When I was having the idea, and then on the heels of it came the, you know, responsibility to our inner beings. And I would say, from what's happened, it sounds like energetically the responsibility to our inner beings is already being handled by our higher self.
Yeah, I think that one got moved right to the front of the list there.
So in the perspectives of consciousness, I was just thinking, you know, I do a lot of introspection and a lot of trying to connect the dots, as I call it, with my experiences, and try and cohesively articulate the epiphanies and the fruit of my journey. And so I have different perspectives of consciousness in those personal musings. Mm-hmm. And so, and I can't properly describe what I really mean by that, but, you know, I would say from the perspective of ego to the perspective of my inner being, which is infinite and, you know, multi-dimensional in perspective according to my thoughts and feelings and my experiences and how I've responded to, you know, those experiences. And so it's very, like you said, we could talk centuries on this. But I think it's really cool how it is much easier to have that shift of a thought in the moment, you know, to start to think something and then instantly say no. No, that's what I may be thinking, but that's not how I feel, and this is what I choose to focus on because of what I feel and what I know within my being is true. So I'm just really satisfied with my personal perspective of consciousness in that I'm much more easily able to stay in that love flow on a regular basis. Not much really boots me out of it anymore.
Cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's fun. My heart bursts with joy, you know, when I have those moments, and they're coming more and more frequently, and they're more and more deep and infinite and expansive.
Yeah, and I like the way you brought up too. You talked about the different perspectives within you, looking at different things, which is part of the way to describing multilocational consciousness. And then you kind of played it out in a slightly different way because you said, I'm thinking one thing, but that's not how I'm feeling. So on the one hand, that's kind of a linear playing out further description, but it's also you're giving a great illustration of how you can hold absolutely two different perspectives on something and using different parts of your body or different of your body. So your mental body and your emotional body, and then your higher self, you know, as the outer body. So what about you, Sheila? What are your feelings into what Jeanie was talking about?
In regards to perspectives, wow, that's really opened up for me on levels that I'm just exploring, really. I mean, there are, I was about to say as many perspectives as there are beings, but I think there's even more than that.
Yeah.
To be honest. And just in the last year, really year and a half, I guess, really more year, getting to an expanded point where being able to hold two perspectives at once, that's kind of a new thing for me in particular. I mean, I'm sure that I have been able to hold two perspectives at once in the past, but it wasn't something that I was aware of necessarily. Not in a very, well, you know, as I say here, in the forefront of my consciousness way. Now it's much easier for me to hold not just two perspectives, but many, many more than that. Or well, shall I say, I now notice that I can and probably have, and I bet almost all of us have, held multiple perspectives at the same time, and perhaps didn't even realize that we were.
Yeah, because it was much more fleeting.
Right. And given the way I feel about perception filters, which is also perspectives as well, and the fact that we each have our own very specific and unique perception filter, for me, it sort of kind of went without saying as I was feeling into that being able to hold multiple perspectives at once is very valuable to me. In that being able to hold something as right and wrong all at the same time is a valuable skill to have, for me anyway, at this point.
What I want to play with is, it's interesting what both of you are bringing up. It's not on different sides of it, but it's you know, it's as you're dancing around the toroidalness of this concept, right? So it's not different sides because there's a myriad of sides per se. So, but I wanted to play with. It sounded like, Jeanie, in your example, there was one perspective that you had that you were thinking, and one perspective that you had that you were feeling. And when the feeling one, we'll say, chimed in a little louder, or perhaps locked in to your awareness a little more, you then could notice the perspective that you were thinking. And then you had actually a third perspective on that, right? You know? And so just hold that thought for a minute. And then it sounded like what Sheila was describing, where she could have I think you said positive and negative perspective on something, right? But it was almost like the way you were describing it, all of you had, you know, well, yeah, that's positive and absolutely. And then all of you had the, well, no, that's negative and no, kind of a thing. And they were there together. So what I'd like to do is play with what it feels like for each of you, and how we dance with that feeling part of when you're starting to notice holding different perspectives at the same time.
Okay. Well, in the moment that I was talking about earlier this evening, when I said there was nothing to fix.
Yep.
I was doing, you know, what I like to call introspection, I guess. And I'm having more of an ability to, I guess integrate is the best word to use on one level, but I'm having the ability to see the whole of what is and transcend my former beliefs or ideas about that there's a right or a wrong, and to see it now as that all is, and in the light of the law of attraction, how we interact with what is what determines our future experience, at least for me. And so when I can be in that knowing that my feeling and thought and observation about something is what's going to determine what I experience in the future, I'm getting much better about the quickness of noticing when my automatic pilot in my head goes to the thoughts of, you know, of the shoulds or the judgment, or, you know, this is this and this is that. So when I do that, I know in my inner being the truth of what it is, and so I catch it. And when I do, to kind of bring the truth to that thought, it's like sometimes I'll feel goosebumps from head to toe. Sometimes I'll feel, you know, just giddy and laugh. Sometimes I'll feel just my heart expanding outside of the building with joy. So yeah.
Cool. I actually, I can remember the first time, one of the first times where I had something very similar to what you just described, you know, that feeling of each of parts of me, I guess I would describe it as, in noticing what I was encountering, what I was experiencing, what I was exploring. And I always held it as kind of warm fuzzies, because my soul was smiling because different parts of me were getting to know different parts of, hey, how you doing? It's nice to meet you. and, you know, and actually, you know, we're all in this together and we're all here. So this is, you know, it's good that we can each have our perspectives and each have different experiences, and, you know, and I'm talking about all me and me and me and me and me and me. So
Yes.
I like the way that you described that. That was like, you gave me a flashback. I like that.
Cool. You know, I haven't always, I mean, maybe I have always been this way, but, you know, going through my experience, I was always very loving and very open as far as I can remember. I mean, I've always known love and been able to give much love.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wanted to, you know, to help, to share, to help alleviate suffering. And so I've been very intentional about my walk, my journey, my seeking, my path. And it was really hard for a long time for me because, you know, I was raised to be good and to do things the right way. And oftentimes the things that were supposedly the right and the good thing brought me much pain and much suffering. And in my heart, I was like, no, this is wrong. Mm-hmm. And so, so despite what the popular beliefs were, or what I was raised to be, the programs, I have had the courage to go off the beaten path, to go the road less traveled, to go with my heart, to listen to those things that I didn't hear anywhere else, but I knew for sure that they were true. And so the more that I have followed that and taken care of myself, meditated and rested and allowed, instead of, you know, burning the candle at both ends and putting my nose to that grindstone, you know, when I've allowed myself some peace and quiet and coloring, or, you know, petting a puppy, whatever, you know, soothes my soul and resonates with that inner truth, the easier it is for me to, you know, to follow that path, to go with my heart and not go with the head, to go with the feeling and not go with, you know, the program, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So just, you know, I've learned that what I know in my heart and soul, like I said in the first Quantum Campfire, everybody in my life thinks I went off the rails on the crazy train a long time ago.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people on that train now, and we're having a party.
Yes, I know. Oh my gosh! And
so actually, every minute of every day. So it's, hey, we're in the cool train now. So Sheila, describe for you what that feeling, what it feels like. Because I think if people can get a sense of other people's feeling of something, it's easier to go, wait a minute, I'm feeling that too. Well, that's what, Jeannie said, or Lisa said, or Sheila said, kind of a thing.
Now I want to make sure I'm describing the feeling of, because we were talking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Feelings popping up for you, kind of, I was describing how when you're having those different perspectives, the good or the bad, what's the feeling when you're, let's say, in the good pillar of light or the good spotlight on the stage, and the bad, and in between. There's something in between feeling too.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot swimming into focus about following your highest desire for me, and why that's the most important thing, for me anyway. In regards to the different perspectives, really in the last few months, I've come, when the ability or whatever, I'm not even sure what one might call it, but when I discovered that I would never have been able to do this before, I began to look at things for myself and really delve deeply within. But it just, I don't know, it was like it felt like a natural progression, that it's like all of a sudden, Jeannie was talking about epiphanies earlier, all of a sudden I had this huge epiphany in regards to perception, perspectives, and our being one and yet singular, in that it is exactly our experiences that makes us all separate. Our experiences of the different language that's been used, our experiences of just everything that colors how we comprehend life in general. And so when I really started feeling into that for myself, it became easy to see for me how I could only ever really truly be 100% right about things for myself. That's something that was going to be right and true and correct for me could be wrong and incorrect and untrue for someone else. And that both of those perspectives would be correct. And I know we've had those conversations where you had said words like, that's a valid perspective, but I'm a little dense sometimes, and it didn't get in exactly the first go round, if you get me. But it's like, once that really, I started experiencing that for myself, and the reasoning behind that for me is, like I said, the whole idea of experiences. That is truly what makes us each unique, in my view, and therefore that right, just that in and of itself for me was huge, because once that's comprehended, everything else for me became very easy to see, where, oh, well, for crap's sake, of course nobody is going to get exactly what I'm saying, because they have a completely different understanding of that word or this energetic, or they grew up with this or that or the other, and it's totally different from what I've had. So of course they're not going to totally comprehend what I'm saying. And so of course that will only make whatever it is that I'm trying to discern for myself right for me. And quite frankly, that took a shit ton of pressure off of me. You know, because I don't have to be right for anybody else. And I know I'm not going to be right for everybody else or probably anybody else, only for myself. And that's really, that opened up so much for me in the knowing to follow the highest desire at all times. Because if I'm only going with what inspires me, then again, if something doesn't go right, well, that's on me to figure out and fix. It's not, you know, it's not, I don't know, it just opened up a whole lot for me in that respect. And also made it a whole lot easier to be able to step outside of what I've always thought, you know, believed necessarily to be true, and look at something from a different perspective. Because I didn't have to be right for even myself, to be honest, because for crap's sake, I've found out a whole lot of stuff that, you know, wasn't right to begin with, you know, from the schooling and, you know, all that kind of thing. So that made it a whole lot easier to relax the grip, so to speak, and allow things to unfold in a much more organic way, and not try to put something in some sort of a box or something, I guess, really.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, you gave a beautiful illustration of how you're feeling about it, but also leading back to the way that Jeanie wrote her this particular focus and question on the email to me. She didn't say perspectives in consciousness. She said perspectives of consciousness. And so when you said, "Oh, I don't know what you call it," well, it's you're expanding your consciousness as you can have these different perspectives, right? And so since it's of, and it's all inclusive because it's toroidal, then of would be the thing, not in, because you're not stuck in one, you know, bit of consciousness. You're actually having perspectives of all of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one thing too, that I wanted to play with a little bit, you had mentioned, and I think you mentioned a little bit too, Jeanie, but Sheila, you had just mentioned where you had one perspective that was right and one perspective that was wrong, just in your example. And then you took that and thought, okay, well, I can see how this perspective that I have is right for me, but may not be right for someone else. And so what I wanted you both to play with and feel into is, have you noticed that you've traveled a bit in the feeling of that or the description of that, where, so maybe at the beginning when you're noticing these things, you know, you have, as Sheila described, you know, one perspective, and that was right for me and may not be right for someone else, right? But it's just a perspective instead of the right or wrong, because in that right or wrong is a level of an area of consciousness that you're playing where they're still calling attention to the duality, because it's right or it's wrong, right? Or good or it's bad. So again, you may still be able to dance in that perspective, but you may not, it may just be a perspective instead of holding it as, you see what I'm saying? Have you noticed anything in that?
I hadn't thought about it in quite the way that you just presented that. It's really been more, you know, I describe it in terms of discernment for myself, and it was easier to make it like right and wrong when describing that. I was actually, the first time I had that realization for myself, I was in conversation with a family member. And, you know, I stated, well, you know, I can see where that would be true for you. And I agree. That's a very true thing for you. It is not true for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, you know, I actually feel like it's not a right and wrong. It's actually a right and a right. It's right for them, and it's it's just different, that it's a different thing that's right for me. Our language is so woefully inadequate.
Yes.
And that's truly really. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeanie.
I said amen to that, sister.
Yes, I mean, it really is very, 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 you know, and it's just not capable of describing what I'm trying to describe. So I wouldn't say it's a right and a wrong, although that's like an oversimplification, really.
Mm-hmm.
But it still stands for me that that it's right for them and not right for me, which in their vernacular might make it wrong. I don't necessarily say it's wrong for me. It's just not my highest desire. And since that's what I'm moving towards, that which makes my heart sing, because my guidance is saying, and all my heretofore anecdotal evidence is showing that is the way to creation.
Mm-hmm.
Materialization, if you will. And so I've had a lot of epiphanies over the last couple of days about that. So, but that's why I say I don't right and wrong is, you know, that's again vernacular, but it's really a right and a right. It's just two different things that are right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Jeanie, any thoughts on the feeling of path of flow in that for you?
I would say, excuse me, yes. And, you know, just toward the last thing that Sheila talked about, you know, the path to creation, I am keenly aware that my thoughts, my feelings, and my focus do create my life. I see evidence everywhere. I mean, you know, things that I created when I was like 7 years old. I remember a memory of doing something with my grandmother. It was a very tactile, very long moment, and I was I was having my self time the other day, and I laughed out loud when I saw evidence of what I had created in that moment. And it's like, you know, most of my life I've felt powerless. I grew up Catholic and believing that, you know, the priests had control over my destiny, and, you know, I couldn't talk to God. I'd have to talk to them, and I had to, you know, be a good person and pray and this and that, and maybe I'll end up in purgatory. If I'm a good person, people will pray me into heaven, and oh my God. But, you know, I had an experience where I experienced the energy of God or my higher self or the universe or whatever people call it. And it was electric, and it was energetic, and it was real. And so I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to really access it. I knew I had that experience, and I knew I wanted to have another experience just like it. And so I've spent this time going through, you know, having this journey, trying to recapture that experience, and doing it through the filter of all of the beliefs that produce feelings of guilt or shame and the constant judgment. And it was a very intentional, very long process for me to to come to the awareness that I have every right to think and feel and believe as I choose. I don't have to go with the program. I don't have to do what other people tell me to do because it's right. Because, you know what? Like Sheila said, it may be right for them. Personally, I don't think so, but hey, I don't know. but you know, I've come to the place to where I know that I know that I know that I absolutely am the lover and the power and the experiencer and the chooser and the magical producer of my life and my experiences. And when I come across something that I don't like, I know that my inner being in that moment knows exactly what I would like. And I've developed lifelong habits of being very self-critical and very judgmental. And when I had that little thing about I don't need to fix it earlier this evening, it was just like, in that moment, it was an instant arise of my spirit that said, there's nothing to fix. Mm-hmm. Everything is perfect as it is. I recognize and appreciate what I've created. I know I've created something that I didn't like, but I know I created this. Mm-hmm. And I choose to believe in that magic, believe in the power of the love that is in my being, that is the core of the toroidal field of my universe, and know that I am connected to all ones in that love. So I'm, you know, and I had dancing in my dreams the other night, BZ, and you said, were they dreams? Right. And I don't know, but I do know. Woohoo!
Well, the way it came through when you told me that, I thought, well, I don't think they were quote unquote dreams.
And I had the best day that day. I had the I was literally going, woohoo! On my way to the parking lot at work, and I'm normally like, oh, I don't want to be here, you know? And I just was like, this day is killer, and it went quickly, and fun things happened, and, you know, just super awesome.
Cool. Well,
and I know you don't like that word, but...
No, it's great. I just don't use it very often. I think it got awesomeified whenever it was the new rage word, and I thought, okay, that really
and I eat something.
Awesome, but you know. I wanted to just finish one thing on this part of the conversation, to describe a little bit the way that I guess the way that I see it now when I'm experiencing the different perspectives. One way I would describe it is as if there was this beautiful, I don't know why a live edge table came to mind, but this beautiful table that's a piece of slab of wood, that's a live edge table, and there are all these different, very diverse objects on it. So it could be some fruits and different things, and they're all having a conversation. And I'm experiencing the different parts of the conversation and the different perspectives of each of these things. And it's almost like I embody not only each perspective, but that which is holding that perspective, if that makes sense. And so maybe that's just a way for me to make sense of it, to picture a table and, you know, an orange and a really beautiful, you know, like a jeweled box or you know, a bowl or different things, because they're very different. And the perspectives on this one particular focus that I'm holding and having this conversation on are very different. Yet, because I'm embodying each of the things, and I can do it if I'm having focus on something that's more where there's different beings might be involved, right? Or different cultures of different beings, or different beings of different races from on planet, off planet. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I hold the perspective and the embodiment of that perspective and kind of dance around the table. So I could be an orange and then be the box and then be the bowl and then, you know, maybe I'm a trowel for gardening or something. And I can have these. And so I can experience each one individually and remember and be taking part in the conversation of the other perspectives. But they're all just as natural a perspective. Does that make sense? So if I'm having a perspective, it's me having a perspective, and it's perfectly natural because it's me having a perspective. And then I can hop over here and do the same thing. So I can do that at the same time. And, you know, I don't, that's funny. I don't see the difference. I laugh because I remembered a time when the very first time I did that, and it was 5 different perspectives at once. So I had been used to for a while having 2 and 3, you know, mostly 2 easily. And then all of a sudden I was having all of these, embodying all of these different perspectives kind of at the same time, and thought, well, really bizarre, but very cool, because they all were, maybe this isn't the right word, but they just were so natural. Each one was natural, was easy. I could see all the different parts of it, feel all the different parts of it, and I could just move around, you know, the visual that I've created here, move around the table and do the same for all of them, and they all fit beautifully, I guess is another way to say they felt so natural.
Well, I imagine then that's something coming down the pike for, you know, those of us that aren't adept at that quite yet, but, you know, aspire to that.
Well, I think you get it, you know, for me anyways, you get adept at it because all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what, but I in other words, it's not like, in debates, right? You'd have debate teams, and then you pick a topic and you debate a topic, and you know, I think of one of the kind of the thumbnails of a really good debater is it doesn't matter what the topic is and what they're personally for or against, they can, you know, go, okay, well, maybe that's not it. But anyways, to me, there wasn't a debate. It just, there was to see the different things. Like, this
Right.
is an orange, and an orange, you know, has the skin and feels a certain way and smells a certain way, and right, and well, of course, it's an orange, right? So yeah, this is a good example of when language is woefully inaccurate, but I think embodying the perspective maybe is the closest way to.
Well, I like the way you describe that, actually, because that sounds like a, specifically with the objects that you're describing doing that with, sounds like a bit of a quantum workout, actually, to exercise those muscles a little bit, the ability to hold multiple perspectives at once. Rather than, because I have not practiced it in any way, shape, or form in the way in which you're describing, although I could see where that would be useful and quite effective at building those quantum muscles. This was, for me, it came as like a lightning bolt epiphany in a way. So it's not something that I've it's just something I've accepted as a knowing, and I haven't played around with. But I like that idea of doing something like that, because it's a little bit uh, different to actually hold and then play with those perspectives to feel into them in that manner. I like that. Thanks for sharing that.
Cool. So, Sheila, did you have a chance to jot something down of something you wanted to bring forward and play with? A question or a concept?
No,
Or...
Well, no, I didn't get a chance to jot anything down or really even consider it, but there is a concept that I've been playing with here recently, and that is, well, I don't know if it's necessarily a concept, but really just there's been a lot of thoughts flooding in regards to following that which makes one's heart sing, and the reasons why that might be so important. Because it, you know, sort of came to me today, you know, part of my experience that I've had over the last week and a half in regards to, you know, perspectives of different beings and everything, is that you know, I've always had trouble with the word love specifically, because it's one of those words that, you know, again, it's a perception filter, and it depends on what a being's experience of that word as they've come up, as to how they feel about it, react to it, what they think about it. It's so in thinking about just that, you know, perspective of things, perception filters, then I in thinking about the following one's highest desire, that which makes the heart sing, if it just kind of made sense to me. It, you know, I personally don't even know. You know, I'm going to be 57 here soon, and I don't know what would make me happy. You know, I never took the time really to get to know me enough to know what would make me happy.
Yeah, because that's not in the rule book. That's not in the script.
No, it's not.
Can't
And
be
so,
having
you know,
beings do that. They'll get powerful.
No more rules.
That's right. That's right.
and so what I noticed about myself was, you know, I rushed out and I started trying to fill that hole that was within me, you know, a myriad of ways, the same ways that a lot of us do. And then, you know, well, I'll settle for this over here. It's not exactly what I want. Never mind the fact that I didn't really know what I wanted to begin with. But, you know, it's not even close to what I think I want. But, okay, it'll do, and maybe I can make it work. And then, you know, that kind of thing leads, of course, to that wonky kind of creation, because we're creators after all, whether we knew it or not, whether I knew it or not. I didn't really, you know, cognize it in the forefront of my mind. And so, of course, when you factor in the law of attraction and everything else with that, well, I was only partially happy, or partially, you know, didn't even know what would make me happy. So how in the hell am I going to create that which makes my heart sing if I don't even know what that is? I didn't take time to get to know me good enough. So, you know, I really, and especially over the last few months and now in these energetics, I mean, it's just, that's, you know, I went back again to the, you know, who's going to take out the trash question in that, you know?
Garbage in, garbage out.
Well, and the truth of it is, I started thinking about that, and I thought, you know, when you're following your highest desire, you know, you're not going to let it pile up. Eventually, you're going to want to take the trash out yourself. If you're following your highest desire. I don't know. This is something I've been thinking on a lot lately. And it just seems to me if everyone followed their highest desire, there's nothing to be upset with each other about. There's nothing to be resentful with each other about. We're not forcing each other. I think this is where I was getting to the bottom line for me in regards to value as well. Because I value my highest desire in a way that is worth way more than, you know, I don't know how many ever dollarinis per hour somebody wanted to try to pay somebody. But if we all, you know, I don't know, this is just a concept that I know I'm on to something for myself, and I'm got a feeling it's for all of us, to be honest. And I know I heard it already, but what about there? I don't want to hear that, to be honest with you. It's not even a consideration. You're borrowing trouble. That was the thing that came up in my head when I started asking those questions. That was the answer I got. You're borrowing trouble. Why would you want to borrow trouble? Well, you know, well, what about this or what about that? Those are all, I know, I started noticing those are almost like pre-programmed response too.
Yeah.
And
that's that coding on the shield, you know. Oh, quick, push that button about the what about. So no, push the other button quick. She's not listening.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jeanie, what comes up for you? I'm playing with that.
Okay, remind me back to point. What exactly question are we answering?
Well, Sheila was saying, you know, following one's highest desire, and that what makes
yes,
heart sing.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's one thing that is not really encouraged or allowed in certain societies or, you know, religious circles or whatever. There's some specific direction, and that is, from my experience, been away from the self, you know, to the ego, to the rules. And the law of attraction, from my perspective, equates to the law of love. And I personally believe, well, my heart's desire, my greatest heart's desire has been to have such a close relationship with Christ that I could never be deceived, that I could never be fooled into something false. And so that was my most intense desire, and that desire has brought me to where I am now, where that I know that the greatest unconditional, abundant, natural love is always flowing to me and through me. And all I need to do is to let go and allow, to open my heart, to love myself, to take care of myself, to rest, to meditate, to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, to, you know, to give, to love and give to my family and to my neighbors, to love and give to myself, to open up and allow that which I know is my birthright. You know, perfect health is my birthright. A heart full of love and natural abundance is it's all of us. We're one. It is who we are, and it is what we absolutely deserve to allow ourselves to experience. And my family's been touched by, you know, all the stuff that's out there and the scandals, you know, my family's been touched by that. And what do? We love and we choose to forgive. And we know that all is well. In those moments where horrific things happen, our inner being knows the purity and the love of what's real and true and preferred. And all I've found in my experience, all I have to do is to truly just breathe and allow that love to wash over me. It's really that simple, and it's very comforting for me to know in my experience that it is real, that those waves of love do come, and sometimes all I can do is take a deep breath and let go of what drama is encircling about me in this world that I live in, and just breathe and know all is well. I am good. I am love. Love is now. And then the universe will drop a little sign to me, and I'll laugh out loud. So I'm absolutely loving playing with being present, playing with paying attention, playing with being an observer to the perspectives of consciousness in my world. It's more fun than I can even possibly describe. Words do fail.
They do.
Because I'm soaring. There I go, soaring out into the clouds.
Your car is expanding this minute so that you can soar even higher.
It's going to fly away. Yep. It's going to float off here in a minute.
Yeah, it's very cool. Sheila dropped off, just to let you know. I'm not sure what that is, but there you go. One of the things that I wanted to just to wrap all of this up with is that it feels to me that it's some people get nervous when they hear that, my greatest heart's desire. Well, what if I pick the wrong one? Or because I've never been allowed to even think about that. Now I can think about that, and what if I get it wrong?
Oh, I know, yeah.
Like there's only one, we got to get the right one, and oh my gosh, what if we don't get the right? Does that mean like forever I've got the wrong one? This really isn't, And you said it beautifully. You're unlimited, and so your heart's desires are unlimited, and they shift and change and grow and encompass and evolve in each moment as we do all of those things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, beautiful conversation. Sheila says she got thrown out and won't let her back in. So we love you, Sheila, and I'm thrilled
Love you, Sheila.
The three of us got to play for a bit. I'm not sure what the scoop is, but there you go. We'll flow with it. It was fun. Thanks for coming, and we'll play around the campfire again soon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the invite. And yes, Sheila, it was great. And I will catch up with you guys soon.
Okay, cool.
Okay, love.
Bye-bye.